Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I see I have 6 people connected. So if you are not connected, I put the link in the chat box. You could connect with the presentation that way because it is an interactive presentation. I'm excited to do this with you guys. This is only my 2nd time using this format for a presentation. So thank you for doing this with me. I think it should be a good session. So I'm going to start the class now. So what we're going to be talking about today is self-care and social and emotional learning for parents and families. So just like has already been shared, just our session agreements to make sure that you have your mic muted, be respectful with your comments, be brief when sharing, and if you ask questions, you could ask them, and then you'll see that in this presentation, you'll actually be able to speak directly into the presentation as well. What are we going to be talking about today? So we're going to be talking about self-care and why self-care is important. We're also going to be talking about social and emotional learning for ourselves as adults and also for our children. And then also I'm going to be sharing a number of resources and activities that you can do with your families. So like I said, so today is an interactive presentation. So I just want to do a quick check-in to see how everyone on the line is doing today. So the question is, today I am, are you surviving? You're just, getting through? Are you managing? Or do you feel like you are thriving? So you're going to see that there is a dot, and you could drag the dot to the point on the line where you are at today. Okay, so we could see that 3 people have put their dot on the line, and it's totally fine if you don't feel like you want to respond to this question. I think, it's always important to acknowledge that we're all at different points every day, and, every day is different, and some days we feel like we're doing better than others, but just to acknowledge where we're at today and that's okay, because we're all in a really difficult time right now, a unique time that's really challenging all of us in different ways. So just acknowledging that. So in today's presentation, I am talking about social and emotional learning, and I feel like it is important that we do talk about it through the lens of what we're currently living in right now, which is this new time of COVID-19, something none of us experienced. Our parents, our grandparents haven't experienced anything like this. And during this time, we've been experiencing a lot of losses. And a lot of times when we think of grief and loss, we often think of death. But I think it's important to acknowledge that we experience loss every day. And right now we're experiencing a lot of different types of losses. So I want to take a moment, and in the chat box, I'm just going to read these. And in the chat box, if you have experienced this, I want you just to type yes into the chat box. So if you have lost a loved one, or if you know someone who has lost a loved one during this time of COVID-19, if you could write yes in the chat box. If during this time of COVID-19, you have lost time with your loved ones. So maybe you're not able to see your parents as often as you once were, your children, or other family members or friends. So if you have lost time with loved ones, it's in the chat box. If you know, let me I think somebody's trying to get in. Hold on. Okay. If you know someone, or if you personally have experienced some type of job loss or income loss, type yes into the chat box. If during this time of COVID-19 you've lost feelings of safety, like maybe you don't feel as safe taking the train, or you don't feel as safe going to the store, or you don't feel as safe getting some basic necessities that you need to get for your family, put yes into the chat box. If you have lost an opportunity to celebrate graduation with one of your family members or your child, or a ceremony, maybe a wedding or a baby shower or any kind of celebration during this time, write yes into the chat box. If you have lost any future plans that you had planned to make, like a trip or something that you were planning to do, write yes into the chat box. So I'm just going to take a moment now just to look at the chat box, and I see all of these yeses. And the reality is, when I look at this and look at all of these yeses, is we have all experienced loss right now. And one thing that I like to point out is loss is not just death. Loss is loss, and we experience it all the time. And it might be a different range of feeling that we have depending on the kind of loss, but loss is still loss. It's something that you can't get back. It's something that you don't have control over, and it's natural for us to have feelings about that, and acknowledge that we're all going through this right now. So I'm actually going to lead us through a mindfulness meditation activity for a moment, because I think let's take a moment just to take a deep breath and acknowledge what we all have been going through. We're all at different points in this process. It's been about 2 months right now that we've been living with COVID-19, and we don't know what our future holds. And so I just want to take a moment before we go into the presentation, just to take a moment, just to be mindful. So I'm actually going to take us all through a mindfulness meditation. It's up to you whether you want to keep your camera on or off. Sometimes I think a mindfulness meditation is better done with the camera off so no one can see you. So I'm going to lead us through this meditation. I do recommend that everyone, if you've never tried something like this, that you do just to allow yourself to experience it in this moment. So I want everyone just to take a moment just to kind of get comfortable wherever you are. If you're sitting down, you could even put your head down on a table if that makes you feel more comfortable. But just take a moment to get comfortable. And we're going to do a mindfulness meditation called Feeling the Breath. So what you're going to do is you're going to sit comfortably in your chair and rest your hands on the desk or in your lap, and then close your eyes. Feel your feet flat on the floor. Relax your shoulders. Let your whole body be still. And just breathe normally and relax. As you breathe in through your nose, notice the feeling of air moving in. And as you breathe out of your nose, notice the feeling of air moving out. And just continue breathing in and out, noticing the air coming in and noticing the air moving out. If you become aware of any thoughts passing through your mind, let them go. Let them float away and bring your attention back to the feeling of your breath. Now we're going to take in a deep breath. So I'm going to do counts of 4. So we're going to breathe in 4, we're going to hold for 4, and then we're going to breathe out for 4. So begin breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4, and begin breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do it one more time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now that we've done this breathing exercise, just take a moment just to notice how you feel. And then when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes and you can bring your camera back if that's what you choose to do. So just a quick check-in. Did anyone notice any feelings while they were doing that? Did they feel relaxed? Any thoughts about that exercise? Okay, and it's completely fine if you don't. So I did want everyone to know that this meditation that I just did there is a link in this slide. So I'm gonna click on it. And this actually are activities that can be done with children in classrooms. They could be done at home, and they're really good activities just to, help us calm down and refocus. So that is a resource that you could use for yourself and also for your children. So, like I said, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about self-care, which is incredibly important during this time. We often say that you can't pour from an empty cup and you have to take care of yourself first. And I feel like that is so important during this time, where so many of us are doing so many things I know our parents on the call, you're doing so much for your children right now and your families and all of us here on the call today, always giving of ourselves to others. But really, truly, it's important that we remember that we have to take care of ourselves first and make sure that we give ourselves that time, because we're not going to be any good to anybody else if we don't take care of ourselves first. So I'm just going to read here. Self-care is important to maintain a healthy relationship with yourself, as it produces positive feelings and boosts your self-confidence and self-esteem. Also, self-care is necessary to remind yourselves and others that you and your needs are important too. And I think for many of us as parents, that can get lost because we're giving so much of ourselves to others. So when we're thinking about self-care, we have to think about wellness as a whole. And self-care can look different in different parts of our lives. So there's our emotional wellness, that we're coping effectively with life and creating satisfying relationships. There's financial wellness, so satisfaction with our current and future financial situations. There's our social wellness, developing a sense of connection and belonging and having a well-developed support system. There's our spiritual wellness, expanding on our sense of purpose and meaning in life. There's our occupational wellness, so our personal satisfaction and enrichment derived from our lives. There's our physical wellness, recognizing the need for physical activity, diet, sleep, and nutrition. Our intellectual wellness, recognizing our creative abilities and finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. And then there's our environmental wellness, so good health by occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well-being. I want everyone to kind of just take a moment looking at this slide and kind of think about, when you think about your overall wellness, what are areas of your life where you feel like you're doing a good job with self-care? And what are those areas in your life that you feel like, maybe you could build up a little bit more? So just take a moment just to think about that. So how do we know if we need more self-care? And it's interesting because, we are ourselves, and, we know why we might react to certain situations that we react to, but we might be able to identify in another person easier that they need to do something more for self-care than we are in ourselves sometimes. So how do we know that we need more self-care? So we have to look for these signs ourselves. And if we recognize these signs, make sure that we're thinking about what we can do to take better care of ourselves. So what are emotional signs that we need more self-care? Can I actually have somebody volunteer to read those out?
I'll read them.
Okay.
Or one of them.
Yeah, the emotional signs, yeah.
Okay, emotional signs. Sense of failure and self-doubt. Feeling helpless, trapped, and defeated. Emotions are overreactive. Detachment, feeling alone in the world. Loss of motivation. Increasingly cynical and negative outlook. Decreased satisfaction and sense of accomplishment.
Thank you. So I think all of us at some point have had those feelings. I mean, I know that I have. And I was actually recently even having where I was maybe being more overreactive, and I had to take a step back and recognize that, you know, I was needing to take better care of myself so I wouldn't respond so fast and so quickly to things. Who can read physical signs? Just feel free to unmute yourself.
I can read it.
Thank you.
Physical signs: feeling tired and drained most of the time, frequent headaches or muscle pain, change in appetite or sleep habits, lowered immunity, frequent illnesses, sense of accomplishment.
Thank you. And yeah, I think we've all experienced these too at some point in time. It's just a matter of being able to call them out and recognize that this is actually a sign that we need to do something to take care of ourselves. All right, and finally, can someone also read behavioral signs and symptoms of burnout? And feel free to unmute yourself. Should I cold call on somebody?
I can read it. It's
Yeah.
Behavioral signs and symptoms of burnout: withdrawing from responsibilities, isolating yourself from others, procrastinating, taking longer to get things done, using food, drugs, or alcohol to cope, taking out your frustration on others, skipping work or coming in late and leaving early.
Thank you. So again, I think all of us have either done these things or we've had feelings that we wanted to do these things as a result of feeling burnt out. And I think that these are all normal ways to feel. We've all felt this way. There's nothing wrong necessarily with feeling these ways, but understanding that this is a sign. And like I said, we can often easily recognize these signs in other people, but how do we take the time to notice this in ourselves? And then finally at the bottom, there is something, compassion fatigue, that a lot of times we don't recognize either when we're constantly giving to other people. So a state experienced by those helping people or animals in distress is an extreme state of tension and preoccupation with the suffering of those being helped to the degree that it can create a secondary traumatic stress for the helper. So that is another sign. I know many of us are caregivers for others, and understanding that sometimes compassion fatigue can lead to some of these emotional, physical, or behavioral burnout. So what do we do to take care of ourselves? So the first thing is to acknowledge that we need self-care. It's time for us to slow down and do something. And maybe that's just carving some time out within your day for yourself. This slide has a link to a number of different resources that you could look at on your own. There's things specifically for COVID-19, finding positive after loss, creating healthy routines, supporting others, eliminating toxic influences, connecting with others, and just self-care and checking in. So these are just resources there for you if you felt like you wanted to look into any of them. But I know that a lot of us, we kind of know things that work for us for self-care. So what I need everyone to do on this slide is just to share out what you do for self-care. So you'll see on your screen, there is a box to the side of the slide, and you could write directly into the box, and we could see everyone's response, and it will be confidential. So you could write, what do you do for self-care? So we have one person here saying they exercise. We got 2 people who exercise. And there's no need to push enter or anything. Just as you start typing, it will start showing on the screen. Spending time with family. Yes, binge watching shows. That is a form of self-care. Sometimes we just need to disengage. Family movie time. And for anyone else, you know, you can write directly to the side of the slide. Yeah, so there's, I mean, really, you know, it's unique for all of us. Like, not everyone does the same thing to take care of themselves, but you have to find what's right for you. The next thing we're going to talk a little bit about is social and emotional learning. So I'm going to share with you just in general what social and emotional learning is, and also just to know that this also are skills that are taught in schools. So I know one thing in Network 11 you might start to see is that we might send lessons home with your children or have interactive lessons during their classroom time on social and emotional learning. So this is to help understand what it is for ourselves, but also for our children. So Castle developed 5 core competencies for social and emotional learning. What they say is that individuals who practice social and emotional learning have improved communication, increased self-esteem, regulation, and strengthened interpersonal relationships. And there's these 5 core competencies: self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. And I'm going to briefly go into each. So the 5 core competencies, so one of them is self-awareness. So what self-awareness is about is kind of even like I had talked about with recognizing that we need self-care. It's exactly that. It's nothing more than just recognizing how you're feeling, understanding your feelings, recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses. It's just a way to be able to navigate your own feelings and emotions. Self-management is a little different because it kind of stems from that self-awareness, but it's once you know and you understand your feelings, but you then know what to do with it. So you understand how to regulate your emotions. You understand how to keep yourself motivated and cope with stress and manage your time and your responsibilities. So the difference between the two, so awareness is just being aware, and then management is actually knowing how to control your emotions and use your emotions for your betterment. Then the other competency is social awareness. So kind of like being aware of ourselves, we're then more socially aware. We're aware that other people have feelings. We're able to empathize with others and have consideration for their feelings, and maybe understanding your own community and people from showing respect to people from different cultures, and kind of just having that social awareness. And kind of similar with the other domains, the relationship skill building is more about, you know, once you're aware of social, you have that awareness of the social and emotional needs in our communities, then the relationship is more that skill building. So we're able to communicate our thoughts and our feelings. We're able to actively listen and work cooperatively and resolve conflicts. And so that's the skills that we're able to use in different situations in our lives. And also decision-making skills can kind of go with both the self-awareness and the social awareness, but being able to make responsible decisions that are ethical. We take responsibility for our actions. We really think about ways to problem solve that are positive, and we show social responsibility to ourselves and to others. So that was a lot of me talking. So I'm going to quiz you guys right now. So if you'll see on your screen that you have a quiz, and it's asking which one is not one of the social and emotional learning competencies. And you could put your answer in. All right, so we got one person gave their answer. So you guys should be able to see that on your screen, and you could click right into the screen. Okay, I think we got one taker, but she's right. He or she is right. It's test taking strategies is not a social and emotional competency. One reason why I decided to ask that or make that the one is because we often, when we're thinking of school, we often are focusing on students improving their test scores and improving their grades. But to know and to understand that social and emotional learning is just as important as the academic skills that our students are developing. And if you think about it, a lot of those skills are skills that we put on our resumes when we apply for jobs. Okay, so finally, I wanted to share some social and emotional resources for families. So here's just a couple activities that I've found to be particularly helpful. These are ones that I've actually been using and implementing myself. So during this time, you know, we've seen that there's a lot of things that are outside of our control. So one thing I've seen is, so my son is actually supposed to be graduating this year, and he's not going to be having the ceremony that he's always dreamed of happening. And that's out of our control right now. So the things that we cannot control, so we can't control that he's having that loss, but what are the things that we can control? So the circle of control and the circle of no control is designed to bring awareness to things that we cannot control. And often those are things outside of us. So others' words, others' mistakes, others, in this case, COVID-19 happening, it's outside of our control. But what we can control is our behavior, our effort, our attitudes, our choices, and bringing our attention to the things that we can control. So I do encourage that for our children or for ourselves, that we're thinking about, the circle of control and the circle of no control, and helping ourselves and our children to kind of let go in some ways of the things that we can't control, and instead bring our focus to the things that we can control. Another really good activity is called the wishing well, and it could be done at the beginning of the day, and just taking some time as a family just to do some belly breathing, and then you can say or write the name of a person that you'd like to wish well, and those could even be essential workers. It could be a family member, whoever you would want to wish well, and then just give a moment of silence and reflection. It's a really good and positive way to start the day. Also, at the end of the day, you could possibly make a gratitude jar, and you could just use anything that's in the house. It could be any kind of container. And I've actually been doing this with my son. At the end of each day, we take time to write down 3 things that we're thankful for, and we'll allow each other to read them out loud if we want to, and then we're putting them in the jar. And then our plan is at the end of the year, we're gonna go back and open the jar and read what we wrote. So that's just an idea of something that can be done with your families. I also have a number of resources here for families. These are some videos. I'll just click on one as an example. These are videos that you could play or have your kids watch on their own. They're meditations, kind of like the one we did earlier, but they're like animated for kids. They're coming up slowly, but they're animated. Yeah, there you can see them now. Animated videos, something quick you could let them watch. This is a podcast that you could let kids watch that has a number of, mindfulness activities as well. This is a really good one. It's called Brain Start Smart, and it has a number of activities that you could potentially do at home with your kids. So it has different things like having a dance party, how are you going to start your day, doing a breathing exercise kind of thing, having a greeting, what is your goal for today? What are you going to try to achieve? And it just has a bunch of different ideas that we could do as families. These are brain breaks over here. They're just activities you could do at home. Making a home routine is also really helpful for families and for kids at this time. And then over here, this is a connections calendar. So if you feel like, you want to kind of keep things interesting at home, it gives ideas of things that you could do that are positive and about just being grateful and being kind and spending quality time with each other, just things that you could do every day that are really easy to do with your families. And then also some of these are a little bit more for parents than for kids. I do have a link here for things you can do at home with your kids, but there's also just tips for parents, how to stay sane during this time, how to manage triple duty working, parenting and teaching. There's a lot of free exercise videos on YouTube right now. You could basically just type in whatever you want, and they're all free and accessible to us. And then there's also a number of mindfulness apps that are all available as well that can be good for your kids, but also good for yourselves that kind of give guided meditations. So that is a lot. I wanted to kind of end the day just acknowledging everyone that came. I'm thankful for your time and for coming here today during the session. And I want to know just what's one thing you're going to do for self-care for you and your family today. And you could write it right into the presentation. So we have someone creating a gratitude jar. We have someone doing meditation. I have to say there is even meditations on YouTube as well. And I did one night and it actually is really helpful. I mean, if you make that time for yourself, it actually is really, really helpful. So it was so great to be here with everybody today. That is the end of my presentation. Again, my name is Kirsten Perry. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. I'll be, here for a while. So if you ever need me for anything, my contact information is there. You could reach out to me whenever you need to. And then is there any questions? I'm going to go back to